Comic Book Savant, episode 457. Welcome back to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This episode, we're going to be doing a review on Titan Season 2 on DC Universe online streaming service. I reviewed or I talked about the first season, so I thought it would be good to follow up since the second season wrapped up a couple of weeks ago. I kind of been sitting on this review to do, but I wanted to get into it and talk about it with spoilers. I will try not to spoil too much if you haven't watched it yet, but if you don't want to be spoiled at all, definitely make sure that you stop the episode now and wait to come back to the episode once you've actually finished watching the season, if you're going to watch it, because I hate to be the cause of spoiling something for you guys. But with all that being said, before we get into the episode, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network, which you can find over at comicspodcast.com. It's just a great resource if you like the content that you find here and you want to find more of it for your daily commute. There are literally hundreds of different comic book related podcasts listed there, or comic book related content. You can find single host shows like myself. You can find two host shows, roundtable discussion format, whatever kind of format of a podcast that you tend to enjoy, you can find it there. You can find podcasts specific to a particular character, publisher, team. It's broken up into so many different genres, and like I said, there are literally hundreds of different podcasts that you can find there on the Comics Podcast Network. I've been a member since it started over 10 years ago, and it's just grown and expanded, so it's a great resource. Even if you are thinking about becoming a podcaster in that realm, you can contact the administration through going to the website and see about getting your show added. It's a good tool to help you grow your listenership or your listener base when you're first starting out, which was the whole reasoning behind why we all came together to do it, is to help cross promote one another and help us grow our audiences. So definitely check that out. Again, you can find it over at comicspodcast.com. And with all that being said, let's jump into this episode, which we're talking about Titan Season 2. Again, this is the DC Universe's first original show that came out. Since then, this is Season 2. We've had Titans, we've had Doom Patrol, which I haven't gotten around to the first season. I know the second season is going to be coming up, I think, after the new year, so I need to go back and binge season 1. Then we've also had Swamp Thing that only had one season. I heard good things about it. I'm not into horror, and it was kind of what I heard, horror-centric. It got canceled before even the first season even finished airing, so it only got the one season. And then, of course, we have Young Justice, The Outsiders, that finished its season. Another season's coming next year. And the Harley Quinn animated series that just started a couple of weeks ago. There are a few episodes into that and that series, so they're building up a nice little library of original content on DC Universe, and they've already announced some stuff coming up. They're going to be integrated heavily into since they're owned by Warner Brothers, HBO Max, when that's coming out, I think March or April of next year. They've already announced like a Green Lantern show that's going to be on HBO Max, and they're going to kind of play around with the format between DC Universe and HBO Max with some original DC Universe related content. So it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out going forward. But again, I have to say about Titan Season 2 that just off the top, I think I enjoyed this season way more than I enjoyed the first season. It was definitely something to get adjusted to. It's also produced by Greg Berlanti, but it's not a part of the Berlanti verse as we know it over on the CW. This is a little bit more mature. This is kind of Greg Berlanti kind of Netflixing, Marvel Netflixing the DC shows, so to speak. So we have our main core group returning. Brenton Thwaites, I think is how he pronounces his name, back as Dick Grayson. And he was very much a focal point of this second season. We have Anna Diop back as Starfire or as Corey Anders, Tegan Croft as Rachel Roth or Raven, Ryan Porter as Gar Logan or Beast Boy, Alan Rickson as Hank Hall for Hawk, Minka Kelly back as Dawn Granger as Dove, Connor Leslie as Donna Troy, Kieran Walters as Jason Todd, Esai Morales as Slade Wilson, and Chelsea Zhang is Rose Wilson. I do want to give a shout out or honorable mention shout out to Natalie. I hope I pronounced this right. Gurmeed as Mercy Graves, and also Joshua Orpin as Connor or Superboy. Oh, also another honorable mention. Ian Glenn from Game of Thrones, Jura as Bruce Wayne. That was a pleasant surprise on the season. But overall, I felt like this season, I and this is just a tip, because I know a lot of you that listen are considering or just starting out doing a podcast of any sort. Is sometimes you have to isolate yourself from the outside noise. And, I heard a lot of flack. I thoroughly enjoyed the season and I was really ready to talk about it. And I was doing my outline for this episode a few weeks ago, right after I finished watching it. And I was seeing people, different places, posting different places, like really dogging or complaining about the ending of the season and how they felt about it overall and how they complained about it. And I think we're very privileged to be in a time where we're having so much content across the board with all the different streaming services and different things. We're getting, when I was a kid or even 20 years ago, I was wishing we had any content at all, more or less content to complain about. And it seems like with the culture online and with the internet, that's why I'm so thankful for the Savant Society or the community we've built here, that we always stay positive, or even if we have something negative to say, we're not nasty in the way we do it. I think more and more people get comfortable being behind a keyboard and just say really reckless stuff that they wouldn't say otherwise, and they've become kind of whinery, if that's even a word, or very complain laden about anything they talk about now. And they can build something up just to kind of tear it down through negativity and negative comments, and it gets kind of tiring. So I had to just back away from it all, and I just didn't watch or read any articles relating about people talking about it, because I didn't want it, because that's one thing you have to be careful about when you do anything like this when it comes to content creation, because you're still a fan and you listen and watch a lot of different things and different people. Sometimes you have to cut that off and back away from it so it doesn't taint your view and your and I have to be objective as possible when I do things like reviews, to give you guys my honest opinion, not my modified opinion, not my influenced the decision or review. I have to give you my honest opinion on it, not something that is influenced by someone else's thoughts. So I've learned to kind of stay away from that when people talk about similar things to what I talk about. So when I write down my thoughts, they're mine and mine alone, not mine mixed with someone else's. Because if you listen and watch enough stuff, before you know it, you'll start mimicking the thoughts or echoing other people's thoughts or lines that they said. And that's why, unless someone asks me specifically to like listen to a podcast, like a comic book related podcast, I will not listen to it unless otherwise, like someone asks me to, for like, hey, tell me what you think type thing. And I will listen and eval it, because I noticed years ago, me and a lot of my friends that were all came in at the same time. We listened to each other religiously, and we all started noticing that we kind of started bleeding into one another's opinions a lot. So I kind of had to fall back from that. So that's just hopefully a good advice to give, to just kind of make sure your thoughts are truly your own and that you don't get influenced by listening to similar individuals in the space, that because before you know it, it'll have it can blend over. And like I said, it kind of made me kind of second guess. And then I was like, nope, I'm going to just stick to what I thought and what I felt. And I enjoyed the season. I thought the writing was improved. I thought the everything as far as the production, you could see that Warner Brothers definitely put a little bit more money into the show this season. Just to the way the makeup, wardrobes, everything across the board looked like a higher end production. And I guess they had to kind of throw it up against the wall to see how people were going to receive, number one, DC Universe as a service, as well as the show itself. And I guess it was a good reception because they definitely put a little bit more behind it across the board. You could tell immediately as this season started up. And like I said, the writing was improved. It wasn't perfect. It was definitely different things in the narrative and how it played out during the season, where it could have been a little bit, a little bit better. But again, it's still growing pains. We're 2 seasons in, and I think from the overall reception, like I said, I really enjoyed it and thought they made a lot of improvements. I definitely felt like the core cast that we had definitely improved. The performances were improved from the first season to the second. They definitely seemed way more comfortable. Again, me being a huge Dick Grayson fan, Brenton Thwaites for me didn't strike as Dick Grayson quite the way I wanted him to the beginning of season 1, but by the time season 1 came to a conclusion, they explained a lot of stuff that, the angry, enraged Robin that we were getting and how he transitioned. And I think enjoyed him, and he carried a lot of the weight in this second season, and I felt like he rose to the challenge. I talked about Tegan Croft during the first season. I felt like she was greatly improved as Raven. Anna Diop, she caught a lot of flack before the show ever came on by the outfits and stuff they saw her in. And again, a lot of those things were quickly explained as the season went on and you saw it play out. And a lot of it was explained during that first season. Now, some people might not have liked the explanation or how it was executed, but you can't do everything super comics accurate because you want to change it up, because if you do it comics accurate, everyone's going to know what's coming. So I like the little twist they did in the first season, and that carried over to the second season when it came to with Slade Wilson being so heavily previewed and in the lead up to the release of season 2, we knew we might be getting like the Judas contract. They did a twist on it where it was somewhat the Judas contract, but again, it's been done quite a bit. They've had a full-on animated movie, direct to home video animated movie. They've done it in the original Teen Titans cartoon, and they just came off of, in Young Justice Outsiders kind of did another version of the Judas contract. So I like that in each iteration. And Young Justice Outsiders, they did did a twist on it, and they did another variation of it here where they didn't use Tara at all. They kind of did a Judas contract interpretation where Rose was the infiltrator into the Titans, in which I really enjoyed. And Chelsea Zhang as Rose, I thought really did a good job encompassing the character. I've thoroughly enjoyed the character from the comics. I don't know kind of in the New 52 whatever happened to her character, but I really liked her during Jeff Johns' Teen Titans run some years ago. But I really liked her in the role, and it embodied that version of the character that I was familiar with. So I definitely enjoyed it. I think the flowing narrative was a lot smoother overall, as far as the overall arcing storylines that were going on throughout the season. It felt way way smoother and better incorporated going from episode to episode, and carrying over those themes and those plot threads going. Even if they put them down for an episode, it just felt a little bit more cohesive as a whole, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Um, excuse me. Ian Glenn, like I said, had been a revelation for me as Bruce Wayne. I didn't know what to expect, and for whatever reason, I don't know, was it due to the rights or different things they were planning, that they had this whole Batman kind of in the shadows thing. So having him kind of in the forefront, he wasn't in a lot of episodes, but when he was in the show, he was very impactful, and he had fun with the character. They kind of he was very much so Batman, and an older kind of Batman, not necessarily Batman Beyond kind of Batman, but what you would expect from the different iterations we've seen, maybe from movies and previous TV shows. I thought he was a good amalgamation of those, and he fit what you would think he would be if you saw a Batman at that age, which really worked. And like I said, I had little to low expectations of his character coming into the season, but seeing how they used him, I hope we see more of him, and he's given more to do in future seasons. I hope he'll be back for season 3, because they have announced season 3, so I'm really interested to see if he is given more screen time in that. But I definitely can eat my words on that. I didn't think it was going to be a good fit when they announced him casting the role, but I'm so glad they did, and it shows that the casting director is really on point, because I think they've done a great job in casting this show. This is the crazy thing. I'm a huge Esai Morales fan. First movie I think I ever saw Esai Morales in was La Bamba, as Richie Valens' older brother. And I always thought he's a charming bad guy. And it was crazy. I'm watching the season, and I think I started putting together my outline notes for this episode, and I'll go on IMDb to make sure I get all the casting stuff. And I didn't even realize, with the goatee and the beard and everything, that it was him, because I haven't really seen him in much stuff recently. And most of the time when you see Esai Morales and everything, he's in a lot of TV and different things in movies over the years since La Bamba, because gosh, that's when I was young, like in school, young. He's always relatively clean shaven, so I did not know that it was really him. So it took me aback, and it showed just how well he was as the character. And I really liked Manu Bennett's take on Slade Wilson and Deathstroke from the Arrowverse. So I was like, man, I'm like, how is this gonna really work? But I really dug him in the role. Yeah, I like I said, I was blown away by a lot of the casting and the performances we got from this season. Like I said, him and Ian Glenn really were the standouts. Then, like I said, Brenton Thwaites really, I think I said, solidified him as Dick Grayson for me. And I really like, now, is he my Dick Grayson from like comics? No, but he's a variation of it. And I think for the variation that they're doing, he works well in the role. Anna Diop really has grown as Starfire. I've liked the progression of her character, and I think a lot of season 3 is going to revolve around her character. First season was centered a lot around Raven. The second season was more about Dick Grayson. Everything's set up. We're going to see, what is her sister name? Blackfire. We're definitely, it was a, excuse me, kind of end credit scene at the end of the season finale, setting up that she's on Earth, she's coming. So it's going to be definitely a confrontation between the two of them going into season 3. We've had a lot of Hawk and Dove stuff. Minka Kelly and Alan Rickson both, they gave them more stuff. I saw Alan Rickson do an interview on Collider Live. It's a YouTube show. He did an interview a couple of weeks or maybe a month ago now, where he talked about when they signed up. It was just going to be like a minor thing, but they had options for more seasons and or a potential spinoff. And I said that when I talked about season one, that I really enjoyed the Hawk and Dove episodes. They brought them in and incorporated them more into this season and as a part of the OG Titans team. And I enjoyed it. They're really set up that I would like to see them get their own spinoff show. I like the inclusion of the whole team dynamic, but I think they deserve their own show. Maybe not 13, episodes per se, 12 or 13 episodes. Can't remember how many episodes this season was, 12 or 13. That I would definitely be all aboard, like maybe 6 or 7 episode season for them. I think I could dig that. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, or they're just going to keep them a part of the Titan series, but it'll be interesting to see coming up, especially with HBO Max. They're probably going to want more content, but they're definitely signed up for that, and that was an option for them, in which you talked about, which you said with HBO Max is kind of up in the air. They don't know. They know season 3 is happening for that, but they don't know specifically, or he at least couldn't divulge or talk about the potential for it. But he said they were, when they were contracted, that was an option that was on the table. So I guess only time will tell. I felt like the younger cast members as well all improved with Tegan Croft. Like I said, at parts in the first season, she was kind of cringy to me, but she's came into her own as Raven, and I'm not mad at her take on it. Ryan Porter definitely had a lot to do in this season, and he was given so little to do, and you could tell the budget was so small in the first season. They only had him as Beast Boy transform into the Tiger, and that kind of continued, but we saw him transfer, do the transformation way more and way on screen. They kind of hid things off camera last time. We've got a lot of full power usage with everyone this season, so you definitely put the money in it. And they had characters like Dr. Light, and we saw his power, so they didn't skimp there at all. Kieran Walters had some really good meaty segments and scenes. I didn't know he was that good of an actor. They had him just being Jason Todd, like really prickish and just being a prick for the most part, being a butt in the first season, but they definitely gave him some range and they really fleshed out his character. And I really like him in that Jason Todd role. I would like to see him in more things, like in movies and stuff like that. I think he's an up and coming young actor for sure. Chelsea Zhang, again, had great chemistry with him, and they kind of have this burgeoning romance kind of thing that I'll be interested to see how that plays out in season 3 or further seasons. They all were given time to breathe, develop, and time to shine. And they introduced also Joshua Orpin as Connor, so I'm really interested to see the whole Superboy dynamic. He definitely looks the part. I think he was like the weakest actor on the cast across the board, but I think he has potential to evolve like the other characters has. So I just think he needs more time. He was not used heavily, but they did a lot of setup, and we probably will see more development with him coming into season 3 as well. Also, Connor Leslie as Donna Troy. I loved her in the brief time we got her in season 1. They gave one of the branching storylines was her storyline throughout the season, and she's just so good in the role. I just loved just seeing her on screen as Donna Troy. She like embodied the character so well, with a little bit more sass, or a little as the young kids kind of call it nowadays, a little swag on it. I just like the stank she put on that role. She gave it a definite edge. Also, Mika Kelly as Dawn Granger as Dove. Man, she is so powerful on screen, And like she just would have certain lines when you said stuff, you're like, nobody on the team would like mess with her. Like she was like no joke. Um, just so done so well, and it goes back into the casting. I feel like they put actors that I had never seen in anywhere else before watching this show, and really have really casted it extremely well. I definitely have to say that. Casting director Jason Knight has done a really great job selecting the right actors to fill these iconic roles and do a good job. And like I said, to end off with, I feel like the writing uh, was stronger this season all the way across the board. It had meaningful arcs. It had plenty of setup for the third season, and I'm really looking forward to see how it's set up. Like I said, certain things lingered on. The whole Dick going through his progression into Nightwing, I felt like necessarily it shouldn't have took the whole season, because that was one storyline at parts. It kind of dragged, and it was kind of how was it getting to that point? But I like the way they did it, because they had to make it different from the comics. It wasn't this, but I think that was kind of one of the black marks on this season. I felt like that storyline, his progression into Nightwing, it lingered on a little bit too long, and could have been tightened up a little bit. But again, compared to the first season to this season, I felt like it was leaps and bounds and improvement on the writing. So I can't complain too much, because certain things with shows, you have to give people time. With the writers, they're all feeling it out and feeling out the actors and looking at their performances and tailoring things to play to their strong points as an actor or actress. So I think we'll see that even tightened up even more going into a season 3. But overall, my overall opinion is, on a 10-point scale for me, it's a must watch. I give it a 9.5 out of 10. Like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed the first season, and Titans is one of those shows that, like seeing the previews and stuff, it was a show when the first season came out. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, but it had the hook of, especially it being week to week, that each episode that I watched set me up or intrigued me enough to want to watch the next one and the next one and the next one. It just kept pulling me in with the development of the characters, and just seeing the different takes they were putting on to different characters or storylines that seemed familiar, that kept me pulled in. I purposely didn't look at a lot of the promo for the stuff for the second season. I couldn't avoid it. I knew Deathstroke was going to be a part of it. And then I just was like, I'm going to watch it as it comes. And I didn't watch it immediately when it started. It was out a couple of weeks. So when I sat down to finally watch it, I think I was 3 episodes or something behind, and I was like quickly pulled in, and I was, chomping at the bit for each new week to come out to get a new episode. And that's the hallmark of any good or enjoyable show, because it's all relative what people consider good, bad, or indifferent. But I think it was an enjoyable show, and I think certain times, and I talked about this with my spinner rack bro Heath over at Serial at Midnight. We were having a conversation one day, and I was like, certain times, as being an industry, I guess I would be what's considered an industry pundit or reviewer of content, that I feel like a certain point, and me being a fan of other movie reviewers and things of that nature that I will watch, is that I think at a certain point that people start taking their entertainment too seriously. It's called entertainment for a reason. So certain times, like I've learned, and I continue to learn, that you can't take the content that we consume for entertainment overly seriously. You can be critical, yes, but it's still, try to enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, don't watch it. And I have to say, I started viewing things more recently through that lens, and not being so overly serious about it, and just get back to the pure elation of being a fan and just enjoying it as such. And I can break it down and tell you what was good and what was bad. The writing wasn't perfect, but it was like 100 times better than what I felt like the writing, the production, the acting was in the first season to the second season. It still has room to improve. But overall, my enjoyment level was a 9.5 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience, or the journey it took me on through the episodes of season 2, and I'm even more stoked to see what level of improvement they make going into a season 3. And I think that's all at the end of the day is what's most important. But that's all I really have to say about Titan season 2. As always, you can find me over on social media at Comic Book Savant on Twitter as well as on Instagram. You can find the website at any time over at comicbooksavant.com. Also, if you want to be a part of the Savant Society, you can join our Facebook group. You can find that at facebook.com/groups/the Savant Society, all one word. You can request to join the group. Once I see your request, I'll approve you. You can come in and I'll introduce you. You can post like a kind of intro to yourself about what you like, don't like in comics and things of that nature, just so we can get to know you. It's a really positive group. We get to know each other. We talk comics. And just enjoy getting to know one another and what we like in the realm of comics. And you can ask questions, suggestions. If I don't answer, someone in the group will answer to help you out with if you need suggestions or you have questions about anything comic book related or even personal related. We get to know each other and we become a support system for one another, and we become friends with one another. And that's the thing I love about it. And more you guys have been joining, and I really appreciate it. And if you like the content I create and you want to think about supporting the show, you can check out my Patreon. You can consider becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/comicbooksavant for as little as $1 a month. You can get perks and benefits. I also do a whole other podcast feed that is Comic Book Savant Extra that I do on the Patreon for the Patreon supporters. So at that entry level of $1 a month, you get access to that feed, and it's also different perks. They range from as little as $1 up to as expensive as $7 a month at the highest tier, and you get different levels of benefits with each one. So check that out over again at patreon.com/Comic Book Savant. But that's all I have for you guys for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, had fun making it for you. As always, until we speak again, you guys stay safe, have a good week, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.